If you are an artist and are interested in coming to the United States and working, you might be interested in applying for the O1 Extraordinary Ability Visa. Watch this video for all our tips and tricks on how to apply and information about this visa now. Hi everyone, my name is Marcus and I'm an immigration attorney. Today I want to talk to you about being extraordinary. If you're an actor, singer, dancer, or any other type of artist, the most common visa that you are going to be applying for is the O1B Extraordinary Ability Visa. The first thing you need to know about this visa is that you can't actually apply for it yourself, so you need someone to apply for that visa for you. That person is known as the petitioner. So a proper petitioner is anyone who is a US citizen or a US-based company working in your field. So for example, if you're an actor, a proper petitioner could be your agent, or it could be a theater company, or it could be a production company, or a director or a producer that you have ties with. I think one of the most important things about choosing your petitioner is that you need to be able to trust this person a lot. So if anything goes wrong for any reason, the person can actually write to immigration to end your relationship and to end your visa. So it's really, really key that you trust this person. Common questions I get when it comes to the petitioner include, if I get arrested, does my petitioner get arrested? And the answer is no. If I owe people money, does my petitioner owe people money? The answer is no. If you owe people money or you get arrested, you will have to deal with the consequences, but your petitioner does not get involved in that situation at all. Every single application for the O1B that you send to immigration requires a consultation letter from a union or a peer group in your field. If you work in the television and motion picture industry, you are required to provide 2 letters, and if you're just like a general arts practitioner, you just need 1 letter. So all you have to do is before you submit the application to immigration, you send a copy to whatever relevant union you may be working with, pay whatever the union consultation letter fee is. It can range anywhere between $200 to $500 depending on the union, as well as submit whatever documentation that they may need. Every single union is very different in terms of the way they work, in terms of the documentation that they require, so you need to go to the website and check out what exactly they want. If not, they're going to deny your application or just send the whole thing back, and then you're going to have to start from scratch. It can take anywhere between 2 days or up to 4 weeks for them to get back to you. So I would strongly suggest, if you want to get this done and done on time, you want to make sure you leave enough time in the application. Like, don't do it the day before you're going to send it to immigration, because they're not going to go back to you. So which union applies to you? It really depends on your field. For example, if you are a film actor, so you would probably go for SAG, and because you're a film, you need 2, so you got to go for a management organization, and that's probably going to be AMPTP. If you are a musician, so you would go for the American Federation of Musicians, or if you are an equity actor, you would go through Actors Equity. You don't actually need to be part of the union in order to apply for this letter. All you need to do is go to the website, figure out what the requirements are, send them a copy of your O1B application. Usually that includes like the form I-129, a bunch of like letters of recommendation, and your portfolio, as well as the filing fee, and send it to them. Some of them actually do accept like an expedited kind of processing, so that means if you're really, really pressed for time and you can, spend the cash, usually if you spend like maybe $200 more, you might be able to get it a little bit faster. So it really depends on your situation. So in terms of consultation letters, one important thing that you need to know is that if you get a bad consultation letter, this means that if they write a letter saying that you really don't deserve the visa, it can have a really, really strong impact on your final immigration application. So immigration says that these consultation letters are not binding. This means that just because you get a bad letter, it doesn't mean that you're automatically going to be denied. However, it does mean that it's going to make things a lot more difficult for you, because when immigration sees these like really negative consultation letters, they tend to issue a request for evidence to ask you for more information in order to justify why you are basically more extraordinary than usual. So I would strongly suggest for you to reach out to like an immigration attorney when you're working on your visa application to find out like, well, which unions are better for you. Sometimes you do have a choice in terms of which union to pick, and also like how to navigate around it if you do get a bad consultation letter. So you can get the O1 artist visa for a maximum of 3 years. However, you have to show to immigration that you will be doing stuff for the next 3 years. And typically, you show that in what is known as an itinerary. I'd like to think of the itinerary as a calendar of events. So basically from January to February, I'll be performing in Romeo and Juliet. March and April, I'll be performing in Macbeth, and so on and so forth until you fill out your entire 3 years. If your itinerary is less than 3 years, they will give you for whatever time is in your itinerary. Like for example, if you just put in 6 months, that is the maximum time that they can give you. If you give them something that's more than 3 years, like for example 4 years, they can only give it up to you for 3 years. So you really want to make sure that you kind of fill out all your 3 years properly. What needs to be in an itinerary? Generally, you need your name, the employer's name, the employer's address, the length of engagement, where exactly you will be performing, and meaning the address, like the name of the venue, as well as like the length of the engagement. Every single engagement or production in your itinerary requires a corresponding contract. So that means that you're going to need to draft contracts between you and your prospective employers and submit them to immigration. Generally, a contract requires your name, the name of the employer, the length of engagement, the address of the employer, and the address of the venue that you will be employed in, like for example the theater or something like that, as well as your role and compensation. You need all these elements in the contract. If not, they will be considered to be speculative, and then immigration won't count them as part of your application. So it's really important for you to like draft a really detailed contract with your prospective employer when you are doing this part of the application. In general, deal memos are not considered contracts because they are speculative. So deal memos are something like where someone says, I intend to hire you for this thing, but there's no compensation amount or something like that. If they do include all the elements that I talked about in the contract, they can be considered to be contracts. But if they don't have that, then they're considered speculative, and immigration does not like that at all. Email contracts are possible because sometimes in the arts industry, you get an email from a producer saying like, I would love for you to be in my film, here's the compensation amount, and they sort of like put all the elements down in an email. That is perfectly fine as long as you have all those same elements that you have in a contract as well. So now we have all the basic things that we need in order to start to apply for this visa. We have the petitioner, we have the union consultation letter, and now we have the itinerary and the contracts. Those are the basic things that everybody needs in order to apply for this visa. If you don't have these basic things, you're probably not going to be able to apply. But what happens after this? Now you have to show that you are extraordinary. The easiest way to prove that you are extraordinary is through a major award. So if you have a Directors Guild Award, Emmy Award, Grammy Award, or Academy Award, you can prove that you are extraordinary. However, since most people don't have those awards, immigration has laid out 7 evidentiary criteria, and if you can meet 3 out of that 7, you are considered extraordinary. So let's take a look at all 7. Evidentiary criteria number 1, performed and will perform services as a lead or starring participant in productions or events which have a distinguished reputation as evidenced by critical reviews, advertisements, publicity releases, publications, contracts, or endorsements. The key words here are performed and will perform, lead or starring, productions which have a distinguished reputation. So there are 3 parts to meeting this criteria. First of all, what is your role? In this case, your role can only be lead or starring. So in terms of the role, I like to think of, okay, so Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet, they're leads. Mercutio and the nurse, they are starring. Anyone else who's like ensemble, you can't even be considered for this criteria. So assuming that you are lead or starring, you go on to the second part, which is the production considered distinguished? So immigration will find that a production is considered distinguished depending on the documentation that you provide them. So you're going to want to give them things like the program, the press release, ads, contracts, endorsements, anything that might show that the production is considered distinguished. The more you give them, the more likely they're going to find the production is distinguished. The less you give them, the more likely they're going to find the production is not distinguished, and therefore you don't meet this criteria. Also, notice that the word is productions with an S, not just production. So therefore, you're going to need more than just one lead role in one production. People ask me like how many is a good number. Usually I tell them 10 is a good number, but it really depends on the quality of the productions. If you have less than 10, you're sort of like on shaky ground with immigration. Anything that's like 10 and above, and if the productions are really good, I think you have a good chance of meeting this criteria. Also, there is a third part which is performed and will perform in the future. So therefore, there's a past component and a future component to this. You got to show that you've already been doing this in the past and will continue to do this in the future in order to meet this criteria.
Evidentiary criteria number 2. Achieved national or international recognition for achievements as shown by critical reviews or other published materials by or about the beneficiary in major newspapers, trade journals, magazines, or other publications. The keywords here are national or international recognition for achievements shown by published materials in major publications.
So for this criteria, it basically means press. Press is two things, reviews and interviews. Anything other than that is not considered press. Social media, not considered press at all. And like the previous evidentiary criteria, there are 3 parts to it and you have to meet all 3. First of all, the publication in which you are in has to be considered major. How do you show that? Through circulation numbers. So for example, if it's a blog written by someone's mom who has, who like nobody ever reads that blog, that's not considered major publications. If it's like the New York Times and you can show, obviously the New York Times is like one of the largest American newspapers, that would be great. But the publication doesn't have to be American in nature. It could be like a foreign newspaper or something like that. Some of my clients have actually never come to America, so they are super famous in their home country and they get press from like whatever major publication is in the home country. And that's perfectly fine as well. The second thing is that the publication must be by or about you. So that means ideally it's like an interview or like a review about your work or something like that. And the last thing is that the thing has to show national or international recognition for achievement. So the publication, the article, the review has to talk about your achievements in the field as well.
Evidentiary criteria number 3. Performed and will perform in a lead, starring, or critical role for organizations and establishments that have a distinguished reputation as evidenced by articles in newspapers, trade journals, publications, or testimonials. The keywords here are performed and will perform, lead, starring, or critical role for organizations that have a distinguished reputation.
Again, there are 3 parts to this criteria. First of all, what is your role? In this case, your role could be lead, starring, or critical. So for example, a lead or starring role for an organization could mean that you are really high up in the organization. You are the CEO, you're the founder, you're the artistic director. Critical role, on the other hand, means that you did something really important for the organization in terms of bringing it new acclaim or bringing more press to the organization or helping it fulfill its mission statement. If you have like a lead, starring, or critical role for this organization, then you go on to part 2, which is proving that the organization is distinguished. So how does immigration figure out whether an organization is distinguished? It depends on the documentation that you're going to give them. So for example, they're going to want to see things like the company bio. What is the track record like? Has the company been featured in press? How many employees do they have? How much money do they make? The more documentation that you can give them, the more likely they're going to find that the organization is distinguished. The less documentation you give them, the less likely they're going to find that it's distinguished. Also, notice that it's organizations with an S, so you got to do more than just one organization. You need to have more than one, so as many as possible. The last part is performed and will perform, so same thing, you got to have done this in the past as well as will be doing it in the future in order to meet this criteria.
Evidentiary criteria number 4, a record of major commercial or critically acclaimed successes as shown by such indicators as title, rating, or standing in the field, box office receipts, motion picture or television ratings, and other occupational achievements reported in trade journals, major newspapers, or other publications. The keywords here are major commercial or critically acclaimed successes.
This criteria is one of the harder ones to get. Major critically acclaimed success basically means like if you have a HBO show and the ratings are through the roof, or you are on Broadway and the New York Times and the Washington Post and all the major publications are giving you glowing reviews. Very, very difficult to get. Most of my clients do not try to apply for this one, but you know, if you're super famous and you're super critically acclaimed, then I would say by all means, try.
Criteria number 5, received significant recognition for achievements from organizations, critics, government agencies, or other recognized experts in the field in which the beneficiary is engaged, with the testimonials clearly indicating the author's authority, expertise, and knowledge of the beneficiary's achievements. The keywords here are significant recognition for achievements from experts through testimonials.
This one basically means letters of recommendation, and there are two parts to it. First of all, you have to show that the person writing the letter is considered an expert in the field. So an expert in the field is someone who's been working in the field for a while. They don't need to be super famous, they just need to have experience. So if they just graduated yesterday, they're not considered an expert in the field. But if they've been working for a while, they have a couple of credits under their belt, yes, they can be considered experts in the field. And then the second part is significant recognition for achievements. So the letter has to specifically state what your achievements are as an artist in the field and explain like why it's considered significant or not. It's not enough to just say like you are super talented and leave it at that. You need to explain what achievements you actually have and why these achievements are considered extraordinary and significant in order for you to get this criteria.
Criteria number 6, a high salary or other substantial remuneration for services in relation to others in the field as shown by contracts or other reliable evidence. The keywords here are a high salary.
This one is also really hard to get, so unless you're making Lady Gaga money, it's really difficult to prove high salary because you basically have to show that everyone is at this level and you are like way up here. So unless you're really making a lot of money, I really suggest that you don't apply for this one.
Criteria number 7, if the above criteria do not readily apply to the beneficiary's occupation, the petitioner may submit comparable evidence in order to establish the beneficiary's eligibility.
The last one is a catch-all. Basically, it means that if these criteria do not apply for you for some reason, like for example, if you're some kind of weird potato artist that nobody really understands your work, then you can send immigration, whatever, and explain like why the criteria doesn't apply to you and what other standards should apply to you. So unless your art is really incomprehensible and really not a normal sort of like out of bounds kind of artist, then you can apply for that. But most people really won't be going for the catch-all in the first place. So after you submit your application, approximately 2 weeks to a month later, you should get a receipt notice from immigration, and then they should give you like a receipt number where you can go online, www.uscis.gov, in order to check the case status of your case. Case processing time can really vary depending on the backlog, and it changes all the time. So if you want an accurate count, you really should be talking to an immigration attorney who is like constantly putting in the cases, and they can give you a better sense of like how long the average application time and the processing time is right now. There is a possibility of doing an expedited premium processing for an extra fee. As of today, the fee is $1,410. I usually don't recommend for my first-time clients to apply for that because sometimes immigration doesn't like it when you try to rush them a little bit too much, and then you end up getting a request for evidence or worse, a denial. So a couple of possibilities after you submit. First of all, you get approved. Yay! We can go for drinks after that. Let's say you don't get approved. Two things can happen. Either they send you a request for evidence or they just deny you outright, and in which case you can either appeal or refile again. The only thing I would say is that if there's a black mark that happens on your case if you get denied once. So if you apply a second time, they're going to ask you, have you ever been denied before? And you're going to have to say yes, and automatically that's going to make your case way harder. So I usually tell people, if you're applying for the first time, make sure it's good, make sure it's a high quality application, make sure you're working with an attorney that you really trust, who you really believe in your case, and put forth the strongest case that you possibly can. Because if you don't and you get denied, it's gonna be harder the second time or the third time through. So that's pretty much it for this whole O visa case process analysis. I'm so glad that you've watched the entire video through. Please subscribe and comment below, and If you have any other videos that you might want me to like create, we can definitely have a conversation about that.